try not to allow it to become a burden. You know, it's a journey, and every step of the way there's somebody or a service to support and help you out there.
You're listening to the Care Podcast, brought to you by Unique Senior Care. We're here to share honest, practical conversations to help you navigate care. Today we're joined by Helena Hitchcock, our Director of Operations. Helena has over 40 years' experience of helping clients and families maximise their well-being at home. We're going to equip you with some practical advice, wisdom and reassurance. Thank you for joining us, Helena. So in this episode, Helena, we're thinking about the constant worry that can come alongside with having a loved one or relative who's getting older or navigating disabilities or conditions. What are the kind of worries that people often have, and how can we help with those?
Very often when people reach out to us, it's when they've been trying to manage mum or dad's condition, their deterioration, their natural ageing, and they've started to do a lot for their parent, and they come to a point where they feel that they can no longer cope with that. But I think that first comes with a mindset that my mum and dad can't cope, and now I've got to look after them. I'm losing my mum, or I'm losing my dad, and they almost feel that they become the carer, the parent almost. The roles reverse. And so people try to do for rather than to do with. And it can become a bit of a burden for people.
Yeah.
Not just a burden, an emotional burden, but a burden of time, worry, people trying to juggle other caring responsibilities with children, jobs, and then it can become that there can become a point of anguish where people can almost start to resent what they're doing and find it difficult, and then it spirals. They can find it really, really difficult and resent their caring role, and then things start to fall apart a little bit. And I think this is what people worry about, the feeling that they've got to take over, they've got to protect their loved one, the most important people in their life, their parents, and they really go on that journey of taking over those responsibilities. As well as that whole personal accountability that comes with it. There's financial worry, what if, mum's getting worse, she's deteriorating, her health isn't good, how are we going to afford care? How are we does mum need a care home? What's happening in the night? Have I got to go and start living with mum at night? That kind of thing. So I think that the worries that come for families there's so many of them that it becomes a real demanding burden on people. As I said, time is a massive element. Most people are going to work these days, and the thought of having to juggle their job with their caring responsibility and feeling a lot of guilt because they can't be with their parent as much as they would like to be. Worrying about that ongoing deterioration with mum or dad as well, watching somebody with a cognitive decline can be very upsetting for people.
Yeah.
When people, they start to not remember who they are and the repetitive behaviours, that kind of thing. Worry about people becoming confused and maybe leaving the home, so safety in the home again, as we previously talked about, all those kind of things. And people get to the point where they don't know where to go, they can't cope, and it becomes too much for them.
Yeah. And sometimes you talked about people can feel resentful, and then they can feel like, oh, I'm an awful person, I shouldn't be feeling that way. But actually it's a kind of burnout, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's sometimes people call it compassion fatigue, and it's not that you're a bad person, it's just that you've reached your limit of the amount of worry and anxiety and stress that you can take with that situation.
Yeah. And people want the best for their mum or dad. They've cared for them all their life. They've been there for them, been the parents, and now that caring role has reversed, and people want to do their very best, and often continue to a point where they can't carry on anymore and need to seek help from elsewhere.
One of the worries that people might have is that their relative is going to go missing, particularly, as you said, if they're living with cognitive issues or dementia. And sometimes they'll think, well, we'll lock that person in so they can't get out. What are some of the issues with that, and what can be a better solution?
Locking people in, there can be lots of issues with that. There's the safety risks that we talked about. There could be something going on in the home. So maybe if there was a fire in the home, somebody was locked in, they wouldn't have an escape route out of the home. We can't be locking people in. People, have the right to their freedoms and choices. But there are things that we can do to alert people to safety risks of people leaving the home, such as, equipment, again, attached to call centres, care lines, etc., where they know people might leave the door, or an alarm on the door if they've got somebody living with them that can alert them to the fact that the front door is opened, for example. But if you have got a family member who is living with a memory problem, who is living on their own, and there might be a risk that they might leave the home and go missing, there is something called the Herbert Protocol, where you can work with the police. There's a form on the police website that you fill in, and it asks you where that person has previously lived, what sort of job did they have, where would they have worked, and lots of personal details about their life before the illness, so that they can use that information in their search to find that person, because very often people will go back to an old address or a workplace or somewhere that's really familiar to them, because that's what they remember. So the Herbert Protocol is a really, really good piece of information for the police if that happens, if you get to that stage.
Great. And you mentioned things like door sensors or alarms. There's so much out there now. What is a good starting point for a family member who maybe doesn't know what technology or gadgets are available? Where could they go, or who could they ask?
There are local authorities will always have a care line kind of service where, through a telephone system or their technology system, people can wear a pendant. So if they have a fall or if they're concerned about something, they'll press their pendant and go through to a call operator who will either alert the emergency services or alert a family member to go and visit. So that's very often where people start, and that gives families peace of mind that, mum or dad can use their pendant to call somebody in the event of emergency. It's a lot easier than picking up the phone. If they're on the floor, they've got it around their neck, or they can wear one around their wrist, like a falls alert. And, the call centre can make contact with their next of kin. And with this technology systems, there comes usually a lot of add-ons, like falls detectors, door alerts, that kind of thing that people can link into. And these kind of companies will talk people through what services they provide, because there's lots of technology out there to support people in the home to ensure that we can manage risk and we can respond to any hazards or risks that might be happening.
Brilliant. So having something like that could really start to ease some of that constant worry.
Absolutely.
When you have left your mum or dad or your relative at home and you're working or doing other things.
Definitely.
Is there anything else that might help to ease some of that worry?
I think one of the things that we've got to remember is that you're not alone. There are lots of services out there that people can link into. And if you have got somebody who you feel that I've got to I've got to go to work, I'm going to leave mum on her own, I'm really worried. There are day centres, there are memory cafes, there are all sorts of things that are out there in the community to support people. And usually local authorities will have a list of things that are going on for the older people within our community to support people to live independently. But as well as that, there are care services that people can have. It might just be that people need companionship or support with the more practical things like medication and meals and ensuring that mum is kept safe or dad is kept safe. So there are lots of services out there, whether it's that low-level companionship, activity type service or more of a social care service to support people with the more practical tasks.
Yeah. So I guess your key message might be don't get stuck in that worry. Take those first small steps to seek help and put things in place that are actually going to help ease some of that burden.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Try not to allow it to become a burden. You know, it's a journey, and every step of the way there's somebody or a service to support and help you out there, or a practical tip to support you. So you're never on your own. There's always somebody there. It can often be very difficult to navigate, but there's always information out there to find, you know, what can suit you best. And, you know, local authority is usually the one that will have a web page or something where services for older people are usually there, and there's all sorts of different things. And I think at the very beginning, that low-level support is often something that can prevent people from deteriorating further. So that companionship type support, those memory cafes, those day centres, that kind of thing, enable people to maintain that independence that little bit longer and give families that more peace of mind.
Great. Thank you, Helena.
Thanks, Jo.
And thank you to everyone for listening. We hope that this episode has given you some confidence, practical advice and reassurance in navigating your own care journey. I've been Jo Cleary, your host at the Care Podcast. We hope that you'll join us next time.